Good afternoon. Chase the Traveler in the house again with a new episode. So, a lot of you want to know about how to get a teaching job in Japan. You know, I didn't really want to make this episode. I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea, but by popular demand, I guess I have to do what I gotta do. All right. Obviously in Japan, if you have a degree, meaning a bachelor of any kind, I think you could even do it with an associate's degree, you can get a job teaching English in Japan. Now, you don't actually need to be that qualified to do the job. Trust me, I know. When I did it, I was like, what? Hold on a second. All I have to do is this? Did I really need to go to college for that? No, but it's a requirement. So, there used to be a lot of schools that used to sponsor people. There used to be a lot of schools where a lot of English teachers used to work. But nowadays, a lot of those schools have perished, and there are only a few left. And the ones that I'm about to talk about today are the ones where if you don't have a visa, they might sponsor your visa. Meaning that they'll go to immigration, they'll tell immigration that, we're going to give this guy or this woman a job, and we're going to pay them a certain amount of money. And immigration will say, okay, how much are you going to pay them? And they're going to say, oh, we're going to pay them that much, but it's not much. Used to be much, not anymore. And then they'll give you a visa. But the thing about it is, usually, if the school sponsors your visa, they pretty much own you. You can't really work anywhere else. You can't work anywhere else and tell them or let them know. But you can work at other places as long as it's not within those hours. But if they find out, they could do something. So pretty much, all right, I'm going to give you one right now. Interac. It's not spelt the way it's supposed to be. But primarily, they hire teachers to go to high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, and you work for basically the Board of Education, but they have a contract with the Board of Education. So they pretty much hire you and send you to different schools to work as an assistant teacher. So pretty much there's a Japanese person who's the official teacher. If you don't know what you're doing, he's probably going to tell you what to do. Now me, I was a badass because I already knew what I was doing. I knew more than they did. So therefore I always told them, okay, you know something? Sit back and relax. I'll handle this, because when you're team teaching, it's tough. It's not easy. There are egos involved. The Japanese teacher always wants to pretend that they speak better than you, which they never do. Some of them speak good English, but some of them, you don't know how they got the job. So, Interac is a place that will probably sponsor you if you have no other way of being able to stay in Japan. Again, I've told you guys before that I don't recommend teaching English in Japan, but so many of you want to know this, and so many of you think that it's worth it, so all right, I'm giving you the information. Now, there are other schools that have been around quite a bit. Interac has been around for a while also, it hasn't gone bust. There are other schools who I'm surprised are still around. Now, this is like an English conversation school, Nova. They were pretty big back in the day. I think they went through bankruptcy, and they've kind of like re-emerged, a lot smaller than before. But I think Nova also will sponsor your visa if you want to work in Japan. Again, you need a bachelor's degree. If you just come in with the high school degree, you're not going to get sponsored. That's just the law. But with the high school degree and with a little bit of training, you can probably teach. Not probably. You can definitely teach if you have a visa. So Nova is one of those schools where pretty much, it's a headache, but it's kind of like, you kind of have no choice. They have students who go there because, they want to kill time or they want to speak English. But the problem with these schools is that you kind of have to be an entertainer. You have to teach with a smile. You go in there like a teacher, they'll think you are kwai. That means scary, scary, scary. So these students reserve classes. Now, they can't pick the teacher. Some schools they do. But the fact of the matter is, if they know that you're going to be teaching at that time and their likelihood of being in a class with a teacher that they don't like is high, they might not go. So you might not get students. And it has nothing to do with you being able to teach or not. It's just a matter of personality. You could be the best teacher in the world, but if the locals don't think you teach well, regardless of how well you teach, then you don't teach well. And you're going to hear about it from management. But again, if you need a visa, you got to do what you got to do. So Nova is one of those places where you can probably get sponsorship. Now, another place that's been around for a while also is Aeon. Now, of course, all these schools have websites. Same deal, English conversation. And at these English conversation schools, your schedule could be pretty heavy. You're going to be working about 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 classes a day. Usually maybe 8 or 9. So you're going to be talking, depending on how well you teach. I was such a great teacher that I basically only spoke for about 4 or 5 minutes. And, if I had like 2 students, I would pair them up and I would make sure that they knew the target language and they would basically work with themselves. So I wouldn't have to speak. I'd pretend. I wouldn't pretend. I would just direct the show after giving some explanations. That's a trick I learned. Because, you could talk yourself out in those classes. Basically talk for 45 minutes, especially with teachers, students that just want to listen. So working at an English conversation school, you have a lot of classes. So you're going to get tired. But if you work at let's say at a high school, junior high school, you have way less classes, maybe about 2 or 3 a day. Sometimes you have no classes if the kids are testing. That's also very tiring when you're sitting around doing nothing and you got to pretend that you're doing something. So, you got to pick your poison. So Aeon is another place, kind of like Nova. Conversation, pretty much. People sign up because they want to learn English, unlike the high school, junior high schools. They're kind of like forced to be there. You don't always have to teach with a smile on your face, which is a good thing. It's tough. smiling all the time, pretending that you're having a good day all the time in order to teach. So, you've got Interac, you've got Nova, you have Eon. Another big one that I'm surprised really hasn't gone belly up is ECC. Now, they've been around for almost 30 years. I mean, Nova's been around maybe almost 30. Interac is a little newer. But there were a lot of other schools in between that just went bust. So, I would say that all three of those schools can probably sponsor you if they want or if you've got the goods. Now, of course, the interview is about, oh, well, what have, do you have teaching experience? Of course, they're going to say that, but do you really need it? No. I mean, actually, teaching experience will help you if you know how to teach Japanese people in a Japanese school system, in a Japanese setting. But any experience that you get outside of Japan teaching, I guarantee you, will not work as well here, even if you know what you're doing. Had to check my mic. Didn't want to have to redo this. So, of course, teaching experience is good, but it's got to be the right type of teaching experience. So, yeah, you've got, again, I'll repeat, Interac, you've got Nova, you have ECC. Which one is the best? Well, I mean, when I started out working at English conversation schools. I didn't really know what teaching at teaching at junior high schools and middle schools were like. But when I heard that, oh, you only have to teach like 2 lessons a day, 3 lessons a day, I was like, wow, give me that any day. Until I did it. And it was like, imagine if you have like 2 classes in the morning from like 9 to 9:50, then from 10 to 10:50, and then you got to stay there till 3 or 4, walking around the schools, and you got to prepare for lessons that you don't even know you have. It's quite exhausting. But there are a lot of people in Japan doing it. So, I would say that for a visa, just to get your foot in the door, those are the best places. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are others in between that I'm just not mentioning right now. But you get the idea. I mean, they should pay me for this advertisement. They wouldn't. But again, like I said before, don't think that all of a sudden you're going to come to Japan and you're going to work at Interac or you're going to work at Nova, ECC, or Eon. Then you all of a sudden found a new career where you're going to be getting this promotion, that promotion. You're going to be starting out as teacher, then you're going to be head teacher, then you're going to be manager. Well, I mean, I've seen foreign managers at Nova. I don't know about ECC. I think I have seen foreign managers at ECC. They're managing other foreigners. I've never seen them manage Japanese people. Yeah. Now, at the high schools or junior high schools, you are never going to be head teacher. But there's a head teacher everywhere in these schools. You, of course, are never going to be I think after, if you work at a Japanese elementary school or junior high school, I think it starts with teacher, then you go to head teacher, then you go, I think, then the next step is vice principal. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe there's something in between that I'm just forgetting. But either way, you're not going to be head teacher. You're not going to be vice principal or principal. You're just going to be a teacher, but really you're an assistant teacher, and you are below the Japanese teacher who doesn't speak English as well as you, if you're a native speaker. So, like I said, don't think you just hit the jackpot because I gave you this information or you got the job. I actually think you should, if that's what your plan is, and you should stay home. I really do. I don't see any benefit in it. I mean, if you just do it short term, you're good. I mean, you do it short term, you come here for a little bit, and then you go back home, that's good. But it's a slippery slope. I know, I've been there, I've done it. Well, I mean, I did it under better times. So, it's totally different than if you do it right now. But hey, if that's what you want, then I guess the info will be useful for you. Now again, the amount of money that you're going to make right now, again, honestly, you're making minimum wage. If you're from the US or maybe Europe or whatever, you're making actually below minimum wage. But can you live in Japan with that? Yes. Are you going to be living in the most luxurious place? No. Will you survive? Yes. Now, I've heard that in Japan right now, they're talking about raising the minimum wage to like 1,500 yen per hour. And some of the companies are like upset, like, oh, well, if you do that, then we're going to raise prices. Well, I guess if they raise prices, then the little bump that you got, you didn't really get. But I mean, I think that the minimum wage over here right now, I think it's like maybe 800 yen or 1,000 yen, which is, again, when the yen was high, that would have been like 10 bucks an hour when I first got here, and in the US it was like 6 bucks or maybe a little less. But now the minimum wage here is kind of like, because the yen has depreciated, I mean, you're looking at maybe $5, $6 an hour. But hey, it is what it is. You'll be able to survive. You'll be able to pay your bills. But you're not going to be doing anything fancy. Now, one thing I will say is that although a lot of these schools will say, oh, do you have teaching experience? And you're going to say, oh, yes, I do. You're going to be like, wow, I have teaching experience. It doesn't matter. Teaching here is totally different than what you've seen or what you've done in your country, wherever it is that you're coming from. It's not going to be the same thing. It is not going to be the same thing. I've seen people with like fancy degrees coming from Oxford, England, and You put them in a class, they couldn't do the work. They didn't know what to do, how to do it. So, and I was like, hold on, what? So, it doesn't matter if you have teaching experience. You got to get the teaching experience from here. Then you know what you're doing. But either way, I do think that teaching for just a little bit might be beneficial for your growth. I mean, it's always good to get new experience, but I wouldn't take it too seriously. I wouldn't just like, say that, okay, something, all of a sudden, I'm here. I've arrived. I don't need to do anything else. This is it. Because if you do that, it will be it. Because again, I mean, you're not going up. You're done. You're done. I'm not sure if that's what I would like in my life. But hey, some people are satisfied with that. It's not always about money and growth. So, I guess if you do come to Japan and you teach and you get sponsored, you get a visa, and after walking out with that visa, you're going to be excited. You're like, oh, I got a visa. I've got a job. That's how I felt. Until I didn't feel that way. So anyway. This video is about getting your foot in the door in Japan if you must, if you have to. If you want to, but don't know how to start. And you don't know which companies to go to. Well, those are the biggest. They've been around the longest. And I think they give out more visas than all the others. Now it's just a matter of you applying if that's what you want. I mean, you can do it on their website. So, anyway, Chase the Traveler, coming to you again from Japan with a new episode. If you need more information, I'm available for consultations. ChaseTheTraveler@gmail.com. Anyway, buy me a coffee. See you in the next episode.